Now before this video begins, I would like to mention that when the game actually started, I accidentally turned off microphones in the recording, which means that the game actually don't have any audio from us. We didn't know this, so you're going to see our faces talking, but everything is going to be narrated by me. But introduction and mulligan will happen as normal. Hi everybody and big welcome to cEDH TV gameplay as normal. Me, Mons, Pontus and RHETORIC, today joined by Björn. But we also have a special announcement.
Yes, a little PSA, thank you Mons. So everyone, I haven't talked about this much on the channel. I've been playing on the channel for a while now, and one thing I do in my full-time job is I am a researcher. So I just released a book called Living Digital Media, and it's about the relationships we have with digital media tools and resources, collaborators, and so forth. If you'd like to check it out, it is free and open access through Computers and Composition Digital Press, and it would mean a lot to me, particularly because, yeah, it's totally free. It has media, it has text and video abstracts and all kinds of stuff that you can find as you look at it and review it. So I hope you enjoy it. I think it'll reveal a lot of interesting things and get you thinking about the kind of emotions we take to texts and all things making for content creation. Thanks. And because it is book release week, I'm going to play one of my pet decks, which is Alena, Thrasios, or the Shape of Water. It's also a bit around the theme of Halloween. Who knows, Guillermo del Toro and so forth. But yeah, we're trying to do Temur Brostorm by making infinite mana in a variety of ways, and then to finish off with something like Finale of Devastation for the win.
Yeah, this is my Bluefarm list. I'm going to a tournament in Portugal, and this is a post-ban list that I'm trying to figure out how to play and make it go.
So today I'm trying out Storm, Force of Nature. I just took this deck from Modular Anonymous because I trust them and they usually build good decks and I didn't have time to build my own deck. It looks to just be a Temur Storm deck. Try to land the commander pretty quickly and then basically just storm. I like storming, so this sounds fun.
I also like storming with your cards. I'm playing Etali, so this is definitely a commander that received a nerf as no more Dockside, no more Mana Crypt, and no more Jewel Lotus. They were kinda auto-included in this build, but it should be able to function, maybe, still. It's gotten weaker, and I actually never got to play it in its glory days of when those cards were legal. So it sounds strange that I want to play it now, but I kinda just want to feel if it's dead or if it still has something going for it. I mean, we still have the Goblin, Sticker Goblin, and Orcish Lumberjack, and some other cool tricks to get the big dino in play. So this first 7 is actually not that bad. We have an Mana Vault, an Ancient Tomb, and then Taiga. And from that we just need another land, and I think we have Commander in play quite early in the game. Then we have Cursed Mirror that we can cast and make a copy of our commander. And Imperial Recruiter for Sticker Goblin or Temur Sabertooth. No, sorry, can't find Temur Sabertooth. But Imperial Recruiter should be good later in the game. Manglehorn is fine. We might pitch Manglehorn to Force of Vigor if we have to. But still, this is a hand that is gonna achieve commander early in the game. So I'm not gonna risk it. We could find better, but I'm gonna keep this first 7.
So our first 7 is very close to actually being kind of a dream hand for this deck, or what I imagine as a dream hand without playing the deck ever. Because my first thought with the commander is that Eldritch Evolution is really strong. Second thought, Orcish Bowmaster is really strong, because that's just turn 1 Orcish, turn 2 commander, not guaranteed because you need the blue land as well, but like almost guaranteed. And we have those 2 cards, but our mana doesn't cast them. So we have to mulligan. Go to second 7. Second 7 has a similar problem. We have a lot of cards we want to see in our hand, but the mana doesn't work out. So, well, we have no mana at all. So yeah, let's just mulligan to 6. This is kind of the most mana we've had in the hand so far. I guess Ancient Tomb still beats it on its own, but this just doesn't do anything. We can't really cast any cards that does anything. We can do turn 1 Lightning Greaves. Wow, yeah, we actually need to mulligan, and I don't like going low in Temur, but yeah, we're going to 5. The deck does not want to give us lands. This is another hand that just doesn't really do anything. For 1 land, only cast a Crop Rot. We don't have any lands that actually saves us. We do have like very good lands, but like, so I think I'm going to 4. I'm just hoping for mana at this point, I think. I finally found the lands, but I'm not happy about it. I need to figure out how cope I want to play it, because I think we're always keeping this hand. While the hand is pretty bad, and I don't think a 3 is more likely to just play the game. The question becomes how we play this out. I think Born always goes, because Born is kind of win more. It's a cantrip, which is nice, but like Monomorphosis is so much better. My greedy brain says 3 lands Monomorphos and hope to draw into gas. And I kind of think that's the most line of play. If we had a fetch land, I could consider not keeping a land and keeping a Noxious instead. But I think that isn't worth it when there's no fetch lands. So the Noxious is just nothing until we trade the Storm. I don't like this hand, but I think I'm just keeping these 3 lands in Manamorphose and hope to draw mana and cast an early Storm. Being pretty AFK.
All right, let's take first 7. Well, a great pile of cards. We can say that much. But we have 1 land, so that's not really going to help us. All right, that's an easy pitch. Look, we got 1 land. Cool cards too, but nothing we can do with it, so bye. We're missing 1 card that would help us basically get to a win. We're 3rd. We're playing against other Storm decks, which may be like a little slower as well. So while I do want to go down even further to try to power out, let's say, Alena, I'm not worried about it because I have Kinnan and this Land of War Elves. I also have backup leader for Sylvan Safekeeper. Temur Sabertooth might be a little bit dead in this case, so I'm going to go ahead and pitch that one and then worry about what I can do with an outlet. But basically, if we were to find something like Basalt Monolith with Fabricate, something like that, we'd have enough of a cleaner line. So let's go ahead and ship it to Bjorn and we'll pitch this Temur Sabertooth.
Turn to Rhystic. Seems like a good hand. I love my Rhystic. It's a scrubland though, so I'm calm. Monoscrewed. Sorry, should have checked that before. This is Volcanic Gemstone. I'm lost in turn order. That probably work. And then it's an Esper, and I can throw away Gitprob or the Wii. Gitprob under might be good. Yeah, I'll keep this.
Björn uses the pregame effect of Gemstone Caverns, pitching the Gitaxian Probe. Mon starts off by drawing a card and playing a Taiga, using that to cast a Mana Vault and passing the turn. Pontus draws a card, plays a land, and they gamble. Being down to 4 cards, it is a bit risky. He finds a mystical Remora and discards a card at random, being a land, keeping the Remora in hand. Redrick goes to his turn and draw a card, plays a Bloodstained Mire. He uses that to find a Taiga, and then he casts a Land War Elf. Tymnan Kram plays a mystical Misty Rainforest, uses that to find an Underground Sea. Gemstone Caverns to cast Esper Sentinel, and Underground Sea to cast Imperial Seal. He finds a Thassa's Oracle and puts it on top of his library. Turn 2. Mons draws a card. He plays a Lotus Petal and an Ancient Tomb. And Esper Sentinel draws a card, the one he tutored for with the Imperial Seal. And this is the 7 mana that you need to cast Etali. ETB trigger, everyone exiles cards. Etali finds an Treasonous Ogre, a Flusterstorm, and a extra turn spell from Pontus, which he can't really use, and a Soul Ring. The green extra turn spell is called Seed Time something, and it requires that an opponent have cast a blue spell this turn for it to work, which no one has, so it will do nothing. But we are casting the Soul Ring and the Treasonous Ogre. We're then tapping Soul Ring, paying 3 life into Treasonous Ogre, and casting Cursed Mirror to make a copy or make it enter as a copy of Etali, which will create another Etali ETB effect. Sending the original back to command zone where you can recast it by using Treasonous Ogre again. Now we're quite lucky because we flip into a Food Chain, a Veil of Summer, and a Chromox, and a Cabal Ritual. So we're going to cast a Chromox in Printing Force of Vigor, we're going to cast a Cabal Ritual, gaining a bunch of black mana, and then cast Imperial Recruiter. This ETB creature can search up Squee the Immortal, and then we basically just sacrifice or send Imperial Recruiter into Food Chain to get the mana that we need to cast Squee. From here we have infinite creature mana that we can use to basically cast Etali infinitely, and then send Etali back to command zone with Food Chain, gaining infinite Etali ETBs, basically casting everyone's decks more or less. From here the win con can be basically whatever, basically exiles everyone's deck and just pass turn, that will do the job, or sculpt anything. Regardless, Etali wins turn 2. With some enormous luck. Regardless, let's go to game 2. Small shift in turn order, Mons is still a starting player, then we have RHETORIC, who were 3rd in turn order, is now 2nd, Pontus is now 3rd from being 2nd, and then we have Bluefarm as 4th player like last time. Plays a mountain, and uses that to cast a Ragavan, Nimble Pilferer. RHETORIC plays a Wooded Foothills, finds a Taiga, and uses that to cast a Mana Vault. With a Seedborn Muse and Thrasios as commander, It's a very potential hand here. He also follows up with a Lotus Petal, and then he passes the turn to Pontus, who draws a card, a pretty good one. He just puts the breeding pool into play tapped and pass. Thrasios, played by Björn, plays a Lotus Petal. Turn goes to Mons, who draws a card. Attacks with Ragavan at and Krom, who exiles an Ancient Tomb. This generates a treasure. We play a land, tapped, and pass. RHETORIC draws the One Ring, plays Volcanic Island, and then he casts the One Ring. Personally, I actually think this is a sequence misplay. I think he should have gone for Seedborn Muse first, because that would have untapped the Mana Vault. On his turn 3 he can cast the ring, and then he's basically sitting on the entire turn 3 circle with the One Ring Seedborn Muse in play. In this sequence he will have the One Ring earlier, but on his next turn he will just have the One Ring again. In total, he will have more the One Ring activations by casting Seedborn Muse now instead of the One Ring currently. But still, he's not that far away of getting the Seedborn Muse and One Ring together in play at the same time. Turn goes to Pontus, who plays a Scalding Tarn, sacrificing it, finding a Volcanic Island, and with a Lotus Petal, he can generate the free mana needed to cast his turn 2 Rhystic Study, which sets him up pretty good. Turn goes to Björn, the Krom player, who plays a land of the Marsh Flats variety, finding a Scrub land, and then he casts an Arcane Signet, giving a card draw to the Rhystic Study. Turn goes to Mons, it's turn 3, and we're attacking with Ragavan again, generating a treasure and flipping into an opposition agent. And yeah, it's a pretty good hit, but it's not really on pair with what Etali kinda wanna do. We're playing a City of Traitors, and then a Jeska's Will. We are not paying for Rhystic Study, so we're giving a card draw to Pontus, and we're targeting Pontus with his 5 cards in his hand. We're gaining the 5 red, using a treasure, tapping a land to cast Etali. However, RHETORIC is responding with a Mana Drain on the Etali, as this is going to potentially generate 7 colorless mana for him. But Mons will respond with a Veil of Summer, sacrificing his last treasure. Björn responds with a Demonic Consultation. He has a Force of Will in his hand, so he just needs a random whatever blue card to Force of Will the Veil of Summer, or potentially Force of Will the Mana Drain, or potentially just Force of Will the Etali. Starts flipping. And there he finds the card he named Gitaxian Probe. He sadly did exile his fastest oracle, but well, there are other potential win cons for him still. And then he uses his Force of Will to pitch the Gitaxian Probe to counterspell the Etali. This means that Mana Drain won't gain any 7 colorless mana, but Veil of Summer will still draw a card. And by the way, Rhystic Study on Pontus board state have been accumulating a pretty good hand size. When Pontus passed turn he had 4 cards in his hand, and now he's up to 9 so far. Mons is pretty lucky drawing Food Chain with his Veil of Summer. However, he is tapped out, doesn't have any more mana, so he has to pass turn. But it looks pretty good as he has Squee in his hand as well. RHETORIC draws a card with his ring. He takes a damage from both Mana Vault and the One Ring and untaps. He uses the One Ring to draw 2 cards, and then he draws a card for turn. He's playing a Polluted Delta, sacrificing it, finding a Tropical Island, tapping 2 to cast a Thrasios, his Simic commander, and then used his 3rd land to pay for Rhystic Study and pass the turn to Pontus, who draws a card for turn. In his hand he has an Underworld Breach and a Treasonous Ogre and the One Ring. However, for a very strange reason he has an enormous amount of lands, so he's lacking mana. He do have a Jeska's Will, and with it he can accumulate a bunch of mana to potentially cast the One Ring or something of the sort. He also has a Song of Creation, but that requires a lot of different colored mana, which is gonna be tricky for him to get. But he plays a Verdant Catacombs and sacrifices it to find a Taiga, casting Gitaxian Probe by paying 2 life, looking at RHETORIC's hand, seeing Flusterstorm, Basalt Monolith and Seedborn Muse. He doesn't really freak out. If he would have looked at Etali's hand, he would be screaming alarm bells a little bit higher to the rest of the pod. But then he draws a Mindbreak Trap, which doesn't help him. It's not what he needed right now. He's then using all of his free lands to cast a Jeska's Will, targeting RHETORIC, Thrasios Timur player. To decrease his hand size in reducing the amount of mana he's gonna get, RHETORIC is casting Deflecting Sword. Now, he can actually do this to change the target of Jeska's Will to target someone else, like Björn, who has 2 cards in his hand. So instead of gaining a lot of mana, he's just gaining 2. However, Rhystic Study triggers and Pontus gets to draw a card. But by only gaining 2 mana, there is nothing Pontus really can do here, as his plan was to get a little bit higher amount of mana to cast Treasonous Ogre into the Wandering. Now he's escalating to hand size instead, and passing the turn. Turn goes to Björn, who draws an Imperial Seal. But the first thing that he does is casting a Wheel of Fortune. Pontus gets to draw a card because of Rhystic Study, but Pontus decides to use Force of Negation, pitching Song of Creation to counterspell the Wheel of Fortune. His thinking is that Björn is on a very low hand size, and Mons have gotten his commander counterspelled. It's gonna be tricky for Etali to come into play again, and he's sitting in play with a Rhystic Study and a Undual Breach in his hand and a Wandering, so he's sitting pretty good. Also, there's a Mindbreak trap that is gonna help him get to another turn. In any case, turn goes to Mons. First thing first, attacking with Ragavan, flipping an Eldritch Evolution from Pontus, and generating a treasure. We're playing a land, tapping City of Traitors and then sacrificing City of Traitors. And then we're casting Food Chain by tapping the forest and using the colorless mana floating from City of Traitors. The only counterspell available is a Mindbreak trap, and this is the first spell, so it won't work. And by the way, everyone is tapped out and Flusterstorm doesn't work here. Mons also pays for Rhystic Study, preventing a card draw for Pontus, making sure to increase the chance of Food Chain resolving, which it does, and he exiles Ragavan into it, gaining 2 mana, taps his land to cast Squeed Immortal. This is the second spell this time, and Pontus gets a card draw. Now on paper, Mons has the win. However, Pontus has a Rhystic Study. And by the way, this would have actually happened anyway if the Wheel of Fortune would have happened, because Mons has a land that can convert into any permanent in his graveyard by basically tapping for 2 green mana and 2 colorless, and he can cast Squeed Immortal from the graveyard. So in the end this would have basically happened anyway, but Pontus would potentially draw a card instead. Regardless, so Mons can basically draw his entire deck here. Or, well, Mons can make Pontus draw his entire deck here. He can basically generate a mana, and every mana that Mons generates will lead into Pontus basically drawing a card. So somewhere down the line, Mons is going to be interacted with. However, there are solutions, as Pontus doesn't really have that many free to cast counterspells, and one card Mons has in his hand is Wandering Archaic. So what Mons does here is just build mana with Squee and giving card draw to Pontus until Mons has the mana to resolve the Wandering Archaic. And Pontus could have used Mindbreak Trap here, but he decided not to, because he accidentally allowed Mons to accumulate a little bit too much mana. He wanted to potentially exile Squeed Immortal in a moment where Mons wouldn't be able to have the mana to recast it, but Mons accidentally gained enough mana to be able to recast it before Pontus realized that that would have been the choice. He basically sat there and accidentally drew a few cards, and at this point doesn't really matter that much. Now here with Wandering Archaic in play, even if Pontus were to cast, let's say, Mindbreak Trap, Mons would create a token or a copy of the Mindbreak Trap and counterspell the Mindbreak Trap. If Pontus then cast a Force of Will, it would be the same effect again. He needs to have something different. So Pontus is basically drawing a bunch of cards through his entire library, as Mons is basically accumulating a lot of mana. Now how Etali actually finishes this match is by basically casting all spells inside everyone's deck. This is going to cost a Final Fortune, which is gonna allow a second turn. Dual Caster Mage is going to be in play, Etali going to the second turn, Molten Duplication to make infinite Dual Caster Mage tokens and basically win the match by attacking with infinite Dual Caster Mages. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this little different kind of style. It wasn't intended, and we hope to have the normal style in next week. Until then, take care guys, and thank you so much for watching. Etali takes 2 games in a row.